a lot of experts. Those 17 guys, they had, one of them, I have to tell you about him, the day before, he said, I see where you're going to bomb, the Americana Romano. He said, that's my place. And he said, I was so proud of that place, and I tried like mad to get 100 octane fuel, better than 100 octane fuel, so I could furnish the airplanes. And he said, I've worked and pleaded and everything, and finally I got it from Hartford, Connecticut, USA. And he said, that was in place for about 3 weeks when I got a phone call that said, get out, you've got 10 minutes to get out. And he said, I grabbed a few papers, jumped in the pickup, drove up on a hill to the south. What have I done? You still hear me back there? I don't hear me. Maybe they're luckier than you are. Anyway,
Oh, that. Oh, is that what we talk him?
well,
Another big guy. Big guy.
Boy, I had a radio operator just like you. Anyway, now let's see, where was I? We haven't taken off yet, have we? No. Anyway, you fly across you go to about 17,000 feet to get over the mountains that won't need oxygen. And then you come down, and the weather should be, there'll be something over the mountains, that's what we're afraid of, but it won't be so bad. We're hoping it'll be pretty good. So then you come down and make your turn, and then approach from the northwest, a town called Pitești.
Raise the mic up,
Just a
speak
little higher.
directly into it, because we're having a hard time hearing.
This thing doesn't want to get altitude on them. Okay, now, so you hear me? I'll get closer to it. Anyway, so then you fly across the Dinarian Alps, and you go down across the I can't remember the name of the valley, and you come into the target from the northwest. I was only made deputy leader the night before, so I did not know where we were in the formation. There were 5 of us, 5 groups, but two of the groups had let a few men go, or they divided them, so that we had seven task forces. So there were 2 little refineries. Ramsey Potts, our deputy leader, was going to lead 15 airplanes to a small one, and there was one other like that. So there'd be 7 task forces, and they told us about how to come in from the northwest, and they told us, then the guy told us about the defenses, which were, you might say, ample. Wow. They said it was second most defended place next only to Berlin. And the old-time pilots that have been flying over England since 1939, they go there for their leave, and that's where they go to rest. But they got their airplanes with them. They've got ME-109s and Focke-Wulf 190s and Ju-88s, and they said they'll be welcome there. You gladly to welcome you there, whatever it is. And so we've got a good story of the defenses. Well, next morning at 7 o'clock, we got out there and we got a flat tire. And my wonderful crew chief, Sergeant, I never thought I'd forget that name. Perry, Champaign, Illinois. Anyway, he was 6'2", and he was tears. He said, I didn't leave this thing until 3 o'clock this morning, and there's a flat tire. So imagine pilots, co-pilots helping change the tire. Boy, we did. We went over with him and got the hangar queen and changed that tire in a hurry. And then we taxied down, and what a thrill. 34 airplanes lined up, and then a space, and then the colonel on the runway, and a space for me. And they're all, you know how the crew chief sits on the top of a B-24, is getting ready to go, and they were giving us the old signal of everything, and it was really boy, the 34 airplanes raised the dust. And you don't have much trouble raising the dust in Africa. It was just like a mighty cloud. It was a thrill. I used to see the World War I pictures of them marching down Fifth Avenue and bands playing. That was the Fifth Avenue to us. It was a thrill to see all those B-24s. And a B-24 loaded like that is not like a B-24 with 2 or 3 500-pounders on. There are no struts. The strut is down. In fact, I said to Perry Scott, that was his name, the day before, I said, hey, I can't fly this airplane. It says right here in my book, don't fly unless you can see that red line right there on that strut. He said, Skipper, you don't even have your
ammunition on yet. He knew we wouldn't complain about that. With our gasoline, our gas load was 200-gallon tanks, one on each side, Tokyo tanks, and a bomb bay. We had 3,200 gallons rather than our ordinary 2,300. And that B-24 was just like that. It really meant business, and all the others along the way looked the same. Well, finally, the colonel started his roll. My co-pilot, Larry Kuhn, Spartanburg South, very, very wrong, very correct. We started, he was rolling, and I started putting the throttle. He said, "You can't do that. I haven't checked the mags." I said, "Pal, there he goes. And if we don't get right behind him, we're not going to get out of here at all." So we took off for the first time in our lives without the co-pilot checking the mags. Well, you know how serious he was mad for the first 50 miles. Anyway, finally we took off. We made a little S-turn. We didn't make a circle turn. And all 178 but one got off. The one crashed on another base somewhere. And 3 men got out. We heard that later. We started across the North Atlantic, or the Mediterranean. And just before we got to Greece, you couldn't see land yet. Larry grabbed my sleeve and about pulled it out. He said, "Look, look, look." And a B-24 going just like that. And he looked and he looked and he looked and he looked back at me with a strange look. He crashed right in the north edge of this ocean. Nobody knows to this day. We've heard that was the lead navigator, but I'm not sure whether that's true or not. But anyway, we had a reason to find out later that if he did crash, it was a shame, because that's when the mistake began. Anyway, that was a little unnerving, but finally we climbed to about 16,000 or 18,000 clouds, but we stayed in them and went over. The 98th thought they would do right. He was afraid to go through those clouds together, that there would be mid-air collisions. So he sent a few through, and a few more, and a few more. There goes your 10 minutes, right then. He'd come in way too late, because he was way behind. That began a terrible series of events. And anyway, we finally went down across the beautiful blue Danube, which is about as blue, well, it's about, I don't see anything brown enough. I'm going to see Strauss in another world someday. That's where the blue is, but it's not in the Yugoslav area. Finally, we came down across that, and the place was gorgeous. Sunday morning, August the 1st, 1943. And the beautiful land. They don't waste ground over there. Even the little corners. I was plowing last week, and I thought, how did those guys plow these corners? Well, they do it by hand. They don't waste anything. The little houses were all painted and flowers, and people outside waving at us. Of course, by this time we're down about 1,000 feet. That's not so far away. Little kids running back and forth on the ground. I don't know whether they were for us or, well, they certainly were not for the other guys. So anyway, that was an exciting thing. Finally, we started our turn. Now we're on the wing of Colonel Addison Baker. I'm his right wing man. I'm the deputy leader. We start our turn. My wonderful navigator, who should be the navigator of the whole U.S. Air Force, Stan Wirtz from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He said, "We're turning too soon. We've got a half an hour before we got to turn." I said, "I can't help it. I can't break formation. I had to stay with him." "You sure you're right?" He said. I said, "Look at all that smoke over there." He said, "That's Bucharest. That's the city. We don't bomb cities." I said, "It can't be. What do we do?" So then I forgot to tell you, when I was called to be deputy lead, he said, "Now what you'll do tomorrow, when we make our turn on the final bomb run, you pull up high, go across me, and go across Lieutenant Porter, and come in on the other side. And that'll be the signal. Everybody in the back, put on their tin hats, and arm your bombs. You know, every bomb has a little cotter pin in it, and you pull that out. You don't want to crash land, your bomb's going to blow your own up, so you wait till you get near the target, then you arm the bombs, and everybody gets these guns ready to go, and some guys wear tin hats, and so this is your bomb run, this is it. And that's what we'd already called and told them. But the navigator said, "It is not so, it is not so. We are turned about around 45 miles. See, 15 minutes, 3 miles a minute. We're about 45 miles too soon with our turn." But we had to stay. And then I found out later, in fact, I thought our colonel had made a big dumb mistake.
And we waving at him, and I was shaking my fist at John Jerstad. He's shaking his fist at me because we hadn't done the little maneuver. We didn't go up and over. We were just going down toward him. And we tried like everything what we could do. And later I found out that we were following the 376th. They were the leaders. Colonel Keith K. Compton, who used to be in the 93rd, and a very competent man, and they had made the turn just about 15 minutes too soon, which means instead of coming in from the northwest, we're coming in from the southwest. Well, we're not even coming in. We're aiming for Bucharest. We're waving like mad, and we don't know to this day whether it was our waving and our unwillingness to keep the command to go over the top, or whether the same thing happened in their airplane. A waysteader said, look at 9 o'clock. Well, all of you guys know what 9 o'clock is. It's that way. 90 degrees from where we're going southeast, and we're supposed to be going straight north, or northwest. So we've now turned our target. There were the smokestacks. All these smokestacks out there, and you can see even from that distance little fires on the top of smokestacks. We were missing our target. Now we don't know to this day whether that was the reason that they saw it, or why they hadn't turned. They hadn't seen it then, of course. But all of a sudden he started his left turn, which means he is breaking formation on a final bomb run. Now you guys know what would happen if he's wrong. He's discharged. They can actually shoot you. If you break formation, back in the days of the Knights of the Round Table, you don't break formation on the final charge, they'll kill you. In the Air Force, he'd have been a citizen of Leavenworth the rest of his life. But that's what he did. He broke formation. Of course, I didn't know that. I didn't even know they were ahead of us. I'm right with him. As soon as we made our turn and started the thing, I pulled up, went over the top of the other two, like I was supposed to be, and then I got way down low. And the lower you get, the safer you are, a little bit. You can't go way up, you get way down. But anyway, we started this new direction. And now we're going northeast instead of southeast. And we're starting for our, and we hadn't seen any flak, any fighters, nothing. No indication that the enemy even was awake. And all of a sudden, way off to the left, there was an 88 millimeter. That's about, what was that be around? Tillman's Boy Scouts. Anyway, an 88 millimeter, very dangerous thing, and boy, the Germans know how to use them. He fired, and it was, I'm sure it wasn't as far from second base to home. It was that close to me, and I saw the smoke, and I thought, it's going to hit me. I just quick thought, this is it. And it hit the tail assembly of my airplane and put a hole as big around as a washtub. Tail gunner Hal Terry from Dundee, Mississippi says, "Skipper, don't do that." And I said, "I'm not doing it. Fire like mad." And then we flew a little further. There was a chicken coop, a little peaceful chicken coop. But somebody pulled a rope, and the back went back, and the sides went down, and forward, and 4 pom-poms. Now you guys know what the pom-pom is. That's 20 millimeter, and they cross control, and they don't have to hit you. They can set them to explode even if they don't hit you. And that thing really hit us. I could feel it hitting all over the airplane. And we were firing our beautiful, and I saw guys like just their feet going over. They get as scared as we do, you know. And they were going into ditches and stuff. So we got past that by, and there was another, just like it. And Sergeant Richard Bartlett from Montana, my wonderful top gunner, I had the best crew in the Air Force. And he said, "What'll I do? What'll I do?" I said, "Fire like mad. They've shot at us." So he opened up, and it was a real chicken coop. Hens and chickens and everything. You should have heard the guys when they teasing. You see a girlfriend with him and say, "Did you tell her about the chicken coop?" Shut up, you guys. Oh, that was really funny. Then the fun ended right like that. As soon as now we're getting close to the target, all of a sudden Lieutenant Porter pulled straight in the air. I looked back, see, I was out under him and under the colonel. And I looked up like that, and it broke in two. I don't know whether I didn't see fire or anything. I just saw the airplane break in two. And down he came. First mission. Maybe he'd been on one or other, I don't know, but very new pilot. And two guys, the guys in the back said, there's 2 chutes. So there were 10 or 11 people on every airplane, and that was the end of him. And I moved over just a little bit closer, and then right by the colonel, just below him. And all of a sudden, and that was about a minute, well, I guess about maybe 2 minutes from the time that Porter went down, that somebody said, look at the colonel. And his right wing was right number 3 engine on fire, and it was going right past the tail. And I got right over on him. I almost stuck my wing in his window, because we were hit, but we weren't hurt, and he was on fire. Now he was about, I would say about a half mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile from the target. And he held, and he held, and he held, and he didn't need to hold. I told you about the Congressional Medal of Honor. There are 2 guys. I think the 3rd verse of America the Beautiful says, "Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, for more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life." And there they were, 2 of them, sticking out with that thing on fire. He wouldn't have broken in 2 if he'd have gotten to belly land or something. He's an old-time pilot. But he held, and we were right on him like that. Bomb bay doors open, everything prepared for the target. And finally he got nearly to the target. But this time he was in flames everywhere. And he belly landed and blew. Now there is a Congressional Medal of Honor, not for 1 person, but for 2. First place, breaking formation on the final bomb run would be discharge, or in his case, a Congressional Medal of Honor, because he knew we couldn't follow the way we were going. And that lead ship, that lead group, my understanding is they went out around Bucharest and brought the bombs back and dropped them in the ocean. I heard that 3 of them pulled off and dropped, and if you ever know anything about that, let me know. I heard that 1 flight leader of 3 planes slipped off to the side and did a little damage to a small refinery. But for the most part, the 376 did not bomb their target. And that target was making an oil like mad within the next day. Anyway, finally we got, now we're the leader. We got near the target, we pulled up. We pulled up about 50 feet above the refinery, and the bomber, in the back of our airplane, we have a man that has a glass. He's the tunnel gunner, and he has glass, and he can see. And we said, well, the day before, the guy said to me, I think I told you a part about it. He said, don't bomb tanks and railroad cars. Bomb buildings. That's where that machinery comes from. Bomb the buildings. So we saw the buildings. In fact, there's a picture I got at home that a fellow has drawn, going over, and there the buildings are. And we pulled up to about 50 feet above the smokestacks. Bombardier horn, bombs away, and we didn't need to use a bomb sight. Suppose you've got a basketball in your hand, and on that wall, they say, hit the floor. You wouldn't need much of a sight, hit the floor. It was the simplest thing in the world to bomb, just right over it. And the tunnel gunner said, 2 bombs go in the target, didn't see any come out. And there's an incendiary on the roof, and it's on fire. And we all at that time, all of our mission, grabbed the intercom, and I push a button, and we all sing, God Bless America, which we did about 3 or 4 notes or so. And I said, hold it, hold it. Right in front of us was a radio tower. Just the height the colonel was when he got hit. That dumb thing right in the middle of their town, of Proeski, the village. I said, you guys watch it, you guys watch it. And so I know this will sound silly, but you can slip a B-24. You can slip one if you have to. You couldn't possibly make the turn because the flak was right up there. So you couldn't make the turn if you go to the top of that thing. You had to go to about 250, 300 feet. We were 40 feet or so. So you just turn the aileron like this, and that means you're going to go left. But you kick the rudder, you're going to go right. And the airplane thinks you've lost your mind. But the dumb thing goes this way. And we went down, and 2 days later they came to me and they said, did you know whether there's any high tension wires on that road? I never thought there wasn't one. I think somebody went ahead and cut them for us. That left wing couldn't have been 20 feet off the ground. And that right tip of the wing, that's why we call the airplane wing in a prayer. The right wing's just shambles. You can see the wires are hanging out. But the aileron was still there. It was wobbling, but we found out to fly it without that any trouble. Finally, we flew across this town and made our turn, and we turned left. Now, you see, I told you I was only briefed the night before, so I didn't know really so much about the mission, but I knew if we went right, We'd already been there. How dumb can you get to go where you've been killed about? So I turned left, and one thing over there at the left were some beautiful mountains. I love mountains, because they can't put many guns in the mountains. And so we just turned left. Everybody thought we were shot down. They all followed George Brown, our wonderful chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he lost 2 airplanes, going back the way he was told. I went back the wrong way. I got the Distinguished Service Cross for doing it. I didn't earn the Medal of Honor, but it was a pretty good job we did. Anyway, we made the left turn, and I didn't see a fighter, I didn't see a flag. We couldn't have seen a thing, couldn't have stood a thing. The airplane was, as we made the turn and started further away, I looked over at Larry, and he's holding his nose, and I said, where is it? He points at the right wing. The gasoline was leaking. Well, that's your lifeblood. And we've already been shot at, so I pushed the button. I said, grab your crash landing position, everybody. Everybody on the airplane has a chance to turn around backwards. Our parachutes is chest type. You put it behind the back of your head so you can stand the jar of the airplane belly landing. And everybody was getting that position ready to go. And of course, we can't do that. We just tighten our safety belt and pray. You say whatever you can do, but you can't make that kind of a maneuver. And then all of a sudden, I'm trying to think now just exactly what happened. Oh yes, very important. A voice from the back said, "Don't look now, but we've still got 2 bombs on this airplane and 1 incendiary." And the bombardier, Ralph Cummings from Seattle, he said, I have salvoed, I have salvoed. And you know what that is. You have a red handle, a pilot can do it too. But the bombardier does it. If his bombs don't drop, he grabs that. So he always does that just to make sure. He says, I have salvoed. And the voice said, we don't care what you've done. There are 2 500-pound bombs and 1 incendiary back here. Well, I'd already called the signal that we're going to belly land because we had a gas leak. Then I grabbed the intercom. Well, I pushed this button again. Hold it. Don't do that. Stack by your guns. We can't belly land. We've got a gas leak. That's true. But we've still got 2 bombs and an incendiary. How lucky you're going to make a landing with an incendiary on it. Look at least in gas if you've got it. Well, you just don't do it. So we put the power, and if ever in my life I loved anything, it's a marvelous B-24. All throttles under one hand. And we put it ahead in the mixture controls and everything else. And then you guys have flown a B-24. No one, B-17's got a funny looking thing. We had the 4 throttles. And that beautiful, we were down to about 85 miles an hour. That's landing speed when we found it out. But we knew if we landed that gas leak and that incendiary, we would have a chance. And we still were running. So we put the power back on, pulled back up, and never saw a thing. Not a fighter, not a aircraft. By the way, over the target there was a new device, and that was the barrage balloon. You see, none of us had to worry about that. We bombed 20 or 25,000. The barrage balloon can only go up to 10,000. They had them. And one place I saw how bad they were, because there was the balloon, and there was the truck that has it, and I couldn't see the cable. There's a cable. That's what kills you. It also has explosives on it, but you don't even know when you're going to hit it. And several of them were hit by that. But that was just something we found out in one very big hurry, that thing could happen. Anyway, we made our way out of the country and over the Denarian Alps again. I saw a roper. When we made our turn, we were way ahead of everybody. And the rest of them made the big wide sweeping turn. Very nice, get right over all the target that they could get over, I mean all the guns. And there they came, and I saw a roper, and I wanted to fly on him. He was my old pilot when I was a co-pilot, and so I slid over as best I could, and got right ahead. When they caught up with me, I got close. You know how fun it is to see your old crew when you're flying. You like to get close, and they go this way, and then not that day. Somebody was dead or something. Nobody paid any attention to me. Besides, they were doing 185. Anything over 145, my airplane would fall apart. So I just throttled back, and away they went. We were there all alone, clear over to the Denarian Alps. Finally, we got to the Greek coast, and I said, okay, you guys, there's the ocean. Let's check. Navigator, how much time you got? And Stan Wirtz, my great navigator, he said, well, about 2 hours of the best flying, maybe 2.5 of the best flying you ever did. That's how much. Oh, man. And then we called the Sergeant Conley from Royal Oak, Michigan, the crew chief, And I said, what do you got? He said, this I'll have to tell you. Number 3 shows out. You know, the B-24 has 4 little, like thermometers, like the old Model A Ford. Oh, none of you guys, some of you know. Thank you. Nobody knows that now. It has a little, like a thermometer, and it goes down. Number 3 was empty. Number 1, 2, and 4 are dipping right down about 0. B-24 has a standpipe in the tank that if it's been hit, it'll keep that going till 5 minutes. And if you're still all 4 engines are running, you've got 5 minutes to decide whether to bail or to belly land. Because when it quits, the others will quit in 5 minutes. But it didn't happen. It was still holding, and it didn't leak gas anymore. Talk about help. It didn't leak gas. It stopped leaking. Larry said, we're out. We're out. He reached for the throttles, or I mean for the mixture, the mags. He reached for the mags to turn them off. And I said, never mind. The engine slamming or whatever it was. You talk about Obama down the Grand back, he bashed our heads in with a good pull up a gun, let's get out of here. So we were going to fly till we got to the first road we saw, or the first place we could land. But it kept going and it kept going. Finally we got to the Greek coast. Down there's Greece, which is not heavily loaded with Germans, but we thought, well, we might eat cabbages, whatever they have. And should we belly land here? You land in the water. You don't land on land if you can get close enough to it. Land in the water. We've got two big dinghies, 5 men in each one, and if you land good enough and stay up long enough, you can get them out and get them in. We've been told the B-24 has the floating of a brick. You land and you're down. But anyway, we knew that was there. So we were really hoping to get to the ocean. But finally, when we got to the ocean, they said, well, let's take this check. And he said, number 3 shows out, but 1, 2, and 4 are just low, down very low. How low? Well, he said, let me tell you this, skipper, I've never been in a B-24 so out of gas in my whole life, either in the air or on the ground. Does that answer your question? Everybody said, yes. So we started out flying along the Greek coast, and then the navigator said, you got about a little over 2 hours. So I said, we're 1,500 feet. I said, nobody moves. You sit in your place, you don't move for anything. Even get up and walk back and forth. There might be 3 drops of gasoline motor used, so they all freeze and stay where they were. And of course, by this time, we'd thrown everything overboard, but bullets, you do not throw them overboard. We threw, but everybody had thrown lunches and everything that we could. And so it was very light. Of course, it was nearly out of gas and out of bombs. So, oh, by the way, we did drop our bombs. We had 2 guys get in there on the walk. It's only this wide, and there are trees going by, and they dig away.